Hey there, it's John, the Everyday Joe, here with fat loss and muscle gaining tips and tricks to kind of help you along your journey. What I've learned during my almost 2 decades of training people is that there are some significant obstacles to getting into shape. It's true. It's not always the individual's fault that they can't quite reach their goals. And I'm not trying to say that no one's accountable for their own actions. We are, but we also don't operate in a vacuum. If it were just you by yourself in the wilderness, you could probably get a lot of things done, but that's not how any of us live our lives, and that's not how we want to live our lives. We have commitments, we have relationships. There are a whole lot of other things at play that can sometimes get in the way of us reaching our fat loss goals and our muscle gaining goals. So what I've come across is 5 general categories, or 5 obstacles, I would say, that most people have found themselves coming across in their fat loss journeys that have either derailed them or kept them from getting all the way to that target weight or that target body composition. So I call them the 5 great obstacles. So I call them the 5 great obstacles, GREAT. And that's goals, relationships, education, access, and traditions. Starting with goals. Sometimes our goals themselves can derail us because they weren't realistic in the first place, or they weren't really attainable in a healthy, sustainable way. The fat loss craze and the diet culture is pretty much at fault for that. When we watch a show like The Biggest Loser and we see somebody losing 12 pounds in 1 week, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, I could do that. Or I know a friend of mine who was able to lose 10 pounds in 1 week. Surely I should be able to do that. And if I lose 10 pounds the first week, and then 10 pounds the second week, and 10 pounds the third week, I should be able to lose 50 pounds in the next 5 weeks. Pretty basic math, basic arithmetic. And that's not the case. There are so many things wrong with that equation that end up, one, not putting us in a situation where we can succeed, and then two, hitting that wall where we realize, oh my gosh, why am I stalling? Why did I only lose 2 pounds this week? I'm a failure, I'm the worst. And that's not the case at all. There's nothing wrong with you. The situation was, our culture told you that you had the ability to reach a goal that really wasn't attainable in a healthy and sustainable way. It's more realistic to aim for a 2-pound weight loss per week benchmark. You might exceed that some weeks, you might not quite reach it some weeks. There's a little bit of fluctuation, especially depending on the demographic that you fall in. But having a more realistic goal from the beginning can keep you from falling into a rut of feeling like a failure when you don't necessarily hit those benchmarks on that goal that never should have existed in the first place. A lot of us have heard of SMART goals, having a specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely framework. That realistic part is what can kind of hang people up, because we've all seen situations where someone did have tremendous fat loss, but more often than not, it wasn't done in a sustainable way, and it's not a good benchmark or a good guideline for you to necessarily set up for yourself on your fat loss journey. The second of the 5 obstacles is relationships. This is the big one. This is about your relationship with other people, and it's about your relationships with food itself. This can include things like emotional eating, things like binge eating. Scientists have known for a long time that about 75% of the time when we're eating, it's for emotional reasons. It's not actually for nutritional reasons. So if 1 out of 4 times you're eating is for some sort of emotion, and sometimes that emotion isn't necessarily positive, it begs us to take an opportunity to look at why exactly it is that we're eating what we're eating. There are different methods you could use. There's the HALT, H-A-L-T. Am I hungry? Am I anxious? Am I lonely? Am I tired? To really try to sit down and break down why it is that you're reaching for food that you probably know isn't the best for you to reach your fat loss goals. Additionally, your relationships with other people can end up impacting your journey as well. If in your relationship with your best friends, you always go out to eat at your favorite Mexican restaurant and you always overindulge because that's what you do, or you're always reliant on someone else to make your nutritional decisions for you, that relationship can be unintentionally undermining you and sort of and keeping you from reaching your fat loss goals. Relationships is a really, really big one. If you're in a situation where you realize that you are emotionally eating, it could be beneficial to speak to a therapist who has a background in food-related behaviors to really sit down with you and help you to figure out what is triggering those situations where you're not eating the way that you'd like to eat. There are plenty of resources online that you can use as well to sort of do a self-assessment and identify those scenarios where you're eating and it's not necessarily connected to hunger or your body's actual desire for food. The third obstacle is education. Most of us, at least in the United States, may have received one class about how to properly manage our nutritional intake, about macronutrients versus micronutrients, and for a lot of us, that was in either the 5th grade or the 6th grade. For me personally, I can remember it very clearly. It was a health and wellness class that we took for about 6 weeks while I was in the 6th grade. That was the last time that public education gave me any sort of formal information about how to plan my daily life when it comes to nutrition, how it comes to planning a meal. That is a long time, a long time ago. And some people never even had that class at all. And unfortunately, that's something that I think is a little bit more important than a lot of the other things that he wanted us to learn in school. Personally, I had about 12 years of math classes. I took pre-calculus, calculus, statistics. I haven't used any of that in decades. Meanwhile, we all have to make lifestyle decisions and nutritional decisions multiple times a day, every single day. And there is never a situation where you were given formal, accurate information about how to do that. So, how in the world could I expect anyone to know how to meal plan properly with the right balance of macronutrients when it was never taught to them in the first place? And now, if you are a parent, you're responsible for doing that for a child with limited resources, limited time, limited energy, and just the whole list of other things that come along with living a normal life. We're a little bit too hard on ourselves in that situation because no one ever gave you those tools. If I were asking you to balance your bank account or balance your checkbook, but didn't teach you how to do basic arithmetic or how to budget, you'd be fighting an uphill battle. The fourth obstacle is access, and that's access to nutrients. Unfortunately, in the United States, we're in a situation where a lot of people live in what they call a food desert. There is no direct access to fresh fruits and vegetables within a certain mile radius of your home. In addition, when you do have access to a grocery store, they might not have the freshest fruits and vegetables. But let's be honest, sometimes the fresh fruits and fresh vegetables look like they're the most expensive things in the grocery store. You have simpler, less expensive options in the middle aisles. And of course, there's the ease and access of just going to your favorite restaurant, going to your favorite fast food joint, where it's relatively inexpensive. Calorically, it's relatively high, so you're gonna feel pretty stuffed by the time you finish your favorite combo meal, and you're all set, you're all done. So access is a big obstacle. Ensuring that we actually have access to fresh food is something that a lot of people don't think about. We sort of assume that we'll always have something readily available. If you're the kind of person who works in an office and is accustomed to being able to go out to eat at a local restaurant come 11 or 12 o'clock, the options that you have available to you within driving distance from your office can be pretty limited. If you only have fast food chains that have pretty calorically dense menu items and menu options for you to choose from, it's going to be pretty tough for you to stay on a regimen where you're still reaching your fat loss targets. Lastly, We have traditions. Traditions can be an obstacle that derails us, and we have no answer for it unless we think about it ahead of time. What do I mean by traditions? The tradition of, if you're in a partnership, giving each other the exact same amount of food to eat for dinner. Now, on the surface, this is perfectly fantastic. It's great. It's fair and it's even. But if you two have different caloric needs, for example, you have a man who weighs 210 pounds and a woman who weighs 150 pounds, unless one of them is doing something very extreme, they should have very different basic caloric needs that need to be met with that meal. Meaning, those meals should not be the exact same size, all things being equal. The fist-sized portion is a great way of making sure, especially with those dynamics, that the portion size itself is correct. Because that 210-pound man is going to have a different fist size than the 100 and some odd pound woman, unless she just has really big hands, or he has really tiny hands. Traditions like eat every single thing on your plate. There are traditions like I need to keep putting food on your plate, otherwise I'm going to be seen as a bad host or doing you a disservice. There are the traditions of this person shows me love by giving me their favorite pie or their favorite cake, and I have to eat it. The tradition of every time that we go to this bar, I have to order this, we have to order that, I have to drink this much. There are so many social traditions that we have that we can sometimes feel powerless against or feel like, I do need to indulge. And I'm not saying that you can't. By all means, when there's a birthday cake, blow out those candles and eat that birthday cake. But at the same time, have that factored into your day, have that factored into whatever your nutritional plan actually is. And know that sometimes it's okay to say no. Sometimes if grandma insists you eat that sweet potato salad or sweet potato pie, sometimes it's okay to say no to grandma's sweet potato pie and deal with the consequences later. Or have a smaller portion than what she's trying to give you and politely say, hey, I'm stuffed, this is good. But those traditions can really, really derail us. You can probably think of multiple times in your life where you've eaten something, but you didn't really want to eat it, but the tradition of that moment said, this is what you need to do. You don't want to be ostracized by your family and friends. Drink that, eat this, and then unfortunately it winds up derailing the progress that you may have made, and then you slip down that slope of, well, I already gave up yesterday, I gave up on Thursday by having 2 plates too many, I might as well just let this go all the way until Christmas, and then things just spiral out of control. Goals, relationships, education, access, and tradition. Think about the times in your life where you haven't been able to reach those fat loss goals. Sit down and actually write down on a piece of paper. It's okay to be honest with yourself, but also extend yourself grace. That's the way of showing really empathy for your own situation. So, those are the 5 great obstacles. Try to have a plan on how to defeat them before you meet them. This is John with Everyday Joe Fitness. Check me out on everydayjoefitness.com, and please remember to like and subscribe. See you later.